Husband kicked out pregnant wife for secret lover. Unaware that his pregnant wife had been arrested for a $50 million fortune, he threw her out for having a secret lover. You can cry louder if you'd like. I don't care if you collapse. Go somewhere else with your child and your suffering. I won't ever have to deal with you again. You are now meaningless. Go. She grasped her stomach in pain as her spouse spat that venom. As she pleaded for assistance, he slammed the door. Where there should have been comfort, there was cruelty. There was betrayal where protection ought to have been provided. He left her when she was at her lowest, thinking that one act of rejection would end her life. However, he was blind to the fact that the lady he cast out in agony would not remain broken. Everything he believed he had created would be destroyed upon her return, and she would soar higher than he could have ever imagined. Those that are discarded frequently come back stronger, and occasionally the lady you believe to be helpless turns out to be the one whose shadow you can never outrun. Please subscribe before we start. Tell us where you're watching from and how this affected you in the comments. Emily stumbled out the front door, gripping her big tummy as the rain poured outside, splashing against the worn pavement. Her body let forth a scream of pain. Hours before, her contractions had begun. Her husband, Daniel, the guy she had previously thought would be there for her forever, was what she needed. Comfort and his steady hand. She received venom instead. Daniel gestured to the door, his expression contorted with icy disdain. You dare not cry in front of me right now. It was this baby, not me, that you desired. You are not part of my new life, which is waiting for me. Emily attempted to stabilize
herself, the rain blending with her tears. Daniel, at least give someone a call. The infant. With a snarl, he interrupted her. It is your burden, not mine, that child. If you must scream, go scream in a hospital hallway, but not here. I'm beyond being bound to your suffering. Emily saw another figure standing behind him inside the house. Wearing a silk robe, Claire, the mistress, wore a smug smirk on her lips as though she had already taken over Emily's crown. With triumphant eyes, Claire's palm rested lightly on Daniel's arm. Another wave of pain tore through Emily, causing her knees to buckle. She staggered and grabbed the doorframe for support. Daniel, however, shoved her.
Turn off. Please, stop ruining my house. Get away. She was left outside in the storm when the door banged shut. The contractions are getting worse. Every muscle in her body ached. However, the betrayal was more painful than the work. When she understood this wasn't just abandonment, her heart broke into a million pieces. It was combat. With rain soaking her clothes and spotlights blinding her as cars raced by, she stumbled along the street. Nobody paused. People looked, but moved quickly. Just like Daniel, the entire world had turned its back. She was all by herself. Her breathing was labored and her vision was fuzzy. She said, I can't do this alone. But she was powerless. The baby was on the way, and the man who had promised to love her was now giggling in the arms of another lady. Emily used all of her remaining strength to clench her jaw. This was not the end. It was the savage start of something far greater. Emily fell to the damp sidewalk as another contraction doubled her. Ma'am, are you okay? A stranger yelled as headlights slowed. The stranger's shadow loomed over Emily as she blinked against the rain. With his umbrella trembling in the wind, a man in his late 50s knelt. His eyes were nervous yet compassionate. He said, You're in labor, as he looked at her belly. Where is your spouse? Where is your family? The contractions were not as powerful as the inquiry. Rain trickled down her pale cheeks as she gave a feeble shake of her head. Nobody is present. The man's gaze flitted to the passing autos. Drivers craned their necks and continued to drive while horns blared. Nobody halted. Nobody desired to become embroiled in the pain of a lady. They were too scared, too cold, and too busy. After a moment of hesitation, he got up. "I apologize, miss. I am unable to. My spouse is waiting. I'll give someone a call." She was left shaking on the sidewalk as he ran off, his umbrella bobbing in the downpour. Emily laughed bitterly, then started crying. Strangers' generosity was fleeting, replaced by dread and justifications. The indifference of society was harsh. She was a female in labor, shunned by her husband, ridiculed by his lover, and disregarded by those whose gazes met hers but chose to turn away. She was forced to her knees as another contraction tore through her body. She thought of the comfortable house she had just been booted out of, as the damp asphalt felt chilly against her palms. Daniel's harsh words echoed like poison, and she kept seeing his face. "I don't care if you perish with your child." A flicker of defiance flashed in her heart, but her chest clenched. She was unable to satisfy him in that way. His betrayal would not drown her child's first cry. Emily grabbed a lamppost for support as she forced herself to stand. Every action was a pain, yet she continued to move. Her mind repeatedly whispered one word, but her breath came in tiny gasps. "Make it through." Her hair was plastered to her face by the rain. Her clothing was drenched and stuck to her body. People walked by, looking and moving more quickly, as though Emery were an illness. A woman pulled her child away. "Crazy woman," a young man mumbled to himself before vanishing into the darkness. By myself. So completely by myself. However, Emily secretly vowed to herself and her inner life, "I'll stand by myself if no one else does. I'll forge my own path forward if the world turns against me." The contractions were now closer, more intense, and more demanding. She was aware of her limited time. The hospital remained a few blocks away. Would she be able to make it? Her legs shook. Despite the screams coming from her body, she continued into the storm. Every step turned into a vow she would never violate. Even though she was thrown away, she resisted being destroyed. She fell again as her strength waned and her eyesight dimmed, this time into the arms of an unfamiliar person who stayed put. "Hold on, sweetheart," an agitated woman's voice called out. "You're no longer by yourself." Warmth. When Emily arrived at a stark contrast to the storm that almost engulfed her, that was the first thing she experienced. She leaned her head against the soft object and almost engulfed her. A loving hand stroked the damp hair from her forehead as her head rested on something. "Shh, you're safe now," a woman said. With a blink, Emily was able to glimpse the face above her. Leaning over her was a woman in her 40s with a worried expression and gentle brown eyes. She was obviously off duty, but she was wearing a nurse's jacket and her clothing were just as wet as Emily's. With a tone of urgency, the woman questioned, "You're going into labor on Chael?" Emily swallowed back a gasp and nodded feebly as her body tightened with another spasm. The woman cast a sidelong glance. "The car is being given to the husband. We'll transport you to the medical facility. Sweetheart, just hold on for me. What's your name?" "Ely." The woman firmly said, "I'm Maria. I won't abandon you either. Do you get it? You are no longer by yourself." Simple and unwavering, their words were like a lifeline. Emily allowed herself to think she might make it through this for the first time that evening. Maria's husband arrived in an ancient automobile a few minutes later. With an umbrella in hand, he hurried out. "Let's get her inside, please." Emily's body shook as the contractions became more intense, and she was gingerly moved into the back seat. Maria snuggled in next to her and put an arm around her shoulders. "Emily, take a breath with me, through your nose, in and out." "Your lips. That's all. You're doing well." With tears running down her cheeks, Emily gripped Maria's hand, not only from suffering, but also from thankfulness. She was unknown to this woman. She had no justification for stopping in the storm and jeopardizing her personal comfort for an unknown person. Even if everyone else had turned away, she was still there, powerful and steadfast. The trip to the hospital was a whirl of music and light. The storm outside and the storm inside Emily were drowned out as she concentrated on Maria's soothing and uplifting voice. Emily, you underestimate your strength. Hold on. Your child is eager to see you, and you're going to demonstrate to that youngster the strength of a mother. Emily felt a change in herself at that very time. She had felt shattered and thrown away like trash for hours. However, Maria's remarks served as a reminder that she was not insignificant. The fact that she was going to have a child was power in and of itself. Glowing like a promise, the hospital lights emerged. Maria gave her hand a squeeze. "Look at that! You succeeded!" "Sweetheart, you're still struggling. This is only the start." Emily let out a trembling breath, her terror transforming into brittle resolve. She could endure anything if she could make it through this night. Not only for herself, but also for the small life within her, she would rise once more. Emily cried out in pain as they wheeled her into the emergency department. Similar to Daniel, and Claire strolled past the hospital doors, laughing together, unaware of the storm about to turn on them. The delivery room smelled of antiseptic and fear. Emily's screams echoed against the white walls as the nurses worked quickly, guiding her through the storm of contractions. Hours passed like minutes, and at last the room was filled with a piercing cry of new life. Her son! Tears streaked Emily's cheeks as the nurse laid the tiny swaddled bundle against her chest. His face was red, his cries urgent, but when she whispered, "Mommy's here," his sobs softened. It was in that moment, weak, exhausted, but alive, that Emily realized she had been given a justification for fighting. She will put up with anything for him. She would get up for him. But that happiness was not shared by everyone in her world. A few days later, while Emily lay in her hospital bed, her parents, Mr. and Mrs. Callahan, entered through the open door. Her mother's lips were pursed. Their eyes scanned the room like inspectors rather than family. Their footsteps were pointed, and their attitudes were icy. "It's true, then. The child was born to you." Emily stood up and held her infant tighter. "Indeed, Mom, Noah is his name." Her father spoke in a flat, contemptuous tone.